Hello everyone and welcome. There's nothing like a good dilemma, especially for interpretation and storytelling. I think some of the exhibitions and storytelling experiences I've had that stayed with me for the longest are those that have put me in some sort of internal conflict or internal dilemma. When our views, our opinions, our approaches, our thoughts on life and so on is challenged, that's really when the longest and most profound thought processes start within us. And it can be such a valuable thing for any kind of experience organizations to play around with. So I thought we should have a look at what it is dilemmas can do and how we can challenge our visitors through dilemmas of various sorts. And I have some examples I would like to show you in this video. And as always, remember to like and subscribe, and you know the drill. So let's dive into this. Those experiences that stay with us for the longest are really those that somehow creates a debate within us. And very often then they do that by broadening our horizon. They simply make us wiser, they make us think. They also make us curious about knowing more about the world, about maybe something we thought we knew a lot about, but it turns out that maybe we don't so much, or maybe we have discovered aspects that we don't know so much about. They make us engage, or make us engage more if we weren't already. They also make us learn, and they make us want to transform or change. Now, all of these aspects can be triggered by emotional dilemmas and questions and facts. And it's such a brilliant way of not just engaging audiences or visitors, but also really create and set up a transformation process for them that can last for a very long time. I still have exhibitions or heritage experiences and storytelling experiences that I experienced for like decades ago, and yet they still somehow stay with me. I still return to them either via pictures or in my thoughts because they did something, they triggered something in me, and that can be incredibly powerful. So how do we create a thought-provoking dilemma for visitors? Well, a few things here. First of all, by challenging their urge versus their morale. In other words, good behavior versus bad behavior. And this is something we all have in us, and this can be done in many different ways. I have an example here. This is from an interactive art installation at Aarhus Art Museum in Denmark. It's called Low Key. It's a beautiful, very expensive Lamborghini, and you were challenged to key it. And as you can see, a lot of people had before I arrived and took this picture, and some sort of just scratched it a little bit, and some tried to write or draw sort of profound messages, or sometimes not so profound messages, but something that was a little bit more arty, or a little bit more sort of had a deeper meaning than just scratching it a little bit. But though it was such a peculiar dilemma you were faced with as a visitor here, because on one hand there was something in you that kind of wanted to key it, partly because you were being encouraged to, but also because you have this incredibly expensive, at least for most people, object in a very expensive car, and you don't really want to ruin it, you don't really want to key it, and at the same time there is an urge in you because other people have done this before you and you kind of want to be part of it. So that dilemma was a really interesting one, where you were kind of being challenged on your morale, but also on a certain urge to do something that will effectively ruin what is a very beautiful object and a very expensive object. Another way of doing it is challenging views on everything from global discussions, debates, via facts or scientific research or results. Now, one discussion that I came across at London Zoo was these info posters. Now, this is just one of them with facts on medicine based on rainforest ingredients and how little they have been explored. And one of the facts that this poster stated was that only 1% of rainforest plants and trees have been tested for medical benefits, which is a shockingly low number. And yet at the same time we are using rainforest medicines, or lots of medicines are based on rainforest ingredients, and yet we have effectively been destroying rainforests for a very long time now. And these kind of more sort of global or widespread discussions and debates are a really good way of creating thought-provoking dilemmas as well. You can also challenge political, religious, humanitarian methods or approaches. Again, from a global perspective or a smaller local perspective, if you like, here's an example from the Natural History Museum in London. They have an exhibition on at the moment. I believe it started maybe in 2020 or 2021 or something. It's called Our Broken Planet, How We Got Here and Ways to Fix It. And the exhibition asks a lot of really interesting questions, especially around what you are willing to do to save the planet or to address climate change. For example, are you willing to change your diet, what you eat? What are you willing to try and eat? It also sort of suggested various foods that you could try that I think a lot of people might not have thought about adding to their diet at all. But there were some really interesting questions and perspectives here, and you were constantly asked questions throughout the exhibition via various media and sources, and you were constantly being challenged to relate to these in various ways and also make choices along the way as you moved through the exhibition. So a really interesting way of creating thought-provoking dilemmas as well. Also challenging traditional thinking and behavior versus new innovations and inventions. Human beings are effectively creatures of habit, and it's amazing how quickly something becomes a habit to us. And I think we all discovered that with the global pandemic, and especially during the lockdowns, when all of a sudden we had to change fundamentally how we live and work. And I think that was a huge eye-opener for a lot of people, for good and bad. And some people found it, I think, to be a very positive eye-opener and maybe a long-needed one, and others struggled quite a lot. But nonetheless, that was probably an extreme way of really challenging our thinking and behavior. And this goes for challenging our daily habits and routines as well, and challenging the way we look at them. And I think I love this one, challenging views on what is right and wrong, or success and mistakes. Because I think very often we tend to have a very black and white view of not just on history and of heroes and villains in history, who won the war, who lost the war, etc., but also on how we view what was a success and what was a mistake. Because I think most people who ever experienced any kind of success in life know that before they got to success, they went through a lot of mistakes or a lot of failures or a lot of what I think they call learnings. And they were needed, they were necessary in order to create any form of success. So I think we still have a very sort of black and white view on success or mistakes or failures, and on what was right and wrong in the world. And to challenge that perspective, I think, is always very interesting. There are many brilliant ways out there of challenging our beliefs, our approaches, our methods, our way of thinking, our habits. And I think it's really something interpretation and storytelling can benefit from a lot, because when we are being challenged, it's not just questioning our thought patterns and our views, our opinions. It's also challenging whether or not we feel we are in a position to change them or broaden them. It's not always about making people change their minds. It's also very much about broadening horizons and making people see a situation from various perspectives. And no matter how we look at the world, that is always, I find, a really healthy and beneficial thing to do. And I think interpretation has some brilliant options there to make that happen. Do you have some brilliant examples on this, or maybe some approaches you have tried? Then please do share them and let us know in the comments below.